Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am so excited to launch the Wonder Women podcast. And joining me today is the amazing Aradhana Srivastava. A warm welcome to you, Aradhana.
Thank you so much, Shivangi. Really a pleasure for me today.
So good to have you as my first guest on the Wonder Woman podcast. Wonder Woman, for those of you who are new here, is going to be a book that I will be publishing in June 2025 of this year. But there is so much excitement around the topic that I decided I'm not going to wait for the book to come out to launch the podcast. So the podcast is a product in itself. And yes, it will, of course, we will go into the themes that the book is going to speak about. But I think bringing these Wonder Women to our, Wonder Women is a term that I use for high skilled immigrant women. I am focusing, at least in the beginning, towards women who moved from the global south to the global north. So this would be from countries in Asia, in Latin America, in Africa, in the Middle East, and to maybe Europe, Western Europe particularly, and to Australia or to the US. So that's sort of the demographic I'm covering. Having said that, I know that a lot of the challenges of Wonder Women, of high skilled immigrant women, are similar, even if you move from, let's say, Eastern Europe to Western Europe. So I hope that this resonates. And my idea with this podcast is to get as personal and as real as possible. So, Aradhana, a very warm welcome to you again. And I know you moved from India to Singapore and then to the UK. But I'd love to, find out a little bit more about you. Aradhana today heads the EZRA Coaching business for Adecco, which, as we know, is one of the biggest human capital groups in the world. And she is not just a business leader, but also a passionate baker. So, tell us more about you, Aradhana. Tell us a little
Mm,
bit about your career and life trajectory as a Wonder Woman.
Great. Thank you so much, Shivangi. It's such a pleasure to join you today, and thanks for the opportunity as well. So a bit about me, Shivangi. Well, gosh, it's been a long journey, and you're right in saying I have moved across the countries as well as across the nations. So I was born in India. My dad was a doctor. He was a senior cardiologist, and so I saw a lot of people around in my house, across the place that I was growing up. And as I was growing up in India, that is, my schooling happened over there. I was given great opportunities within the family to have good education, find a career for myself. But as you would know, Shivangi, as being an Asian woman, the opportunities were the ones which are right for women. So those were the. So I eventually became a professor, assistant professor in the university, which is the right job as well, frankly, for women. Carried on for a bit. Got married to a wonderful person. He's from southern part of India. His name is Swaminathan, and he brought me into the corporate world. He used to work for media, opened up my eyes to look into, can you do something beyond just academics? And I took the plunge. It was a great opportunity for me. So I moved on to the corporate world from there. I found a place for myself, eventually moved on to various commercial roles to become national sales head for a global organization. And then I had my children. So, like a very nice, devoted wife, I decided to take a break, have my children, moved on with my husband to Singapore. I was a trailing spouse, and it's more dramatic than the word sounds, basically, when you're trailing your husband. Not a job, of course, with my children, with my family, moved to Singapore. And that's where, when my kids started going to school, I realized that this is a place where I would like to start thinking of going back to work. It was not the easiest of journey, Shivangi, as you would know. For any person who's a trailing spouse would know these things. When you're an expat, it's not easy to just find a role there. I would say started really small again. I thought I was in a high horse thinking that, I was a national head. I could find a role in any country, but that's frankly not true when you've taken a break. Eventually found some people who trusted me with a small role, moved up the ladder. And when I moved to this company, to Adecco Group, I think that was, I would say, in a way, a lottery ticket, which really helped me grow back into my career. Great leaders to work with, moved on from one role to a global role, and then moved on to starting to look after EZRA as their head of Asia Pacific. EZRA grew quite well under my leadership. We became quite a large organization, quite a big company. Grew 200% year on year, which was the highest growth which the company had seen. And then the company, my leaders decided to move me to UK to start leading our UK business. So that's how I'm in UK at the moment. It's been a great journey, a lot of learnings along the way as well. And I'm one of those people who've moved with the spouse. And also, so this time my husband was the trailing
I
spouse
was about to
who
say, so
moved
you have
to
a husband
UK
who's
with
a
me,
spouse
with
now.
my family.
So, as a high
It's
skilled
changed a bit.
immigrant man, are his challenges similar to what you have, or is that easier?
I would say Shivangi is the same. It's not very far away. Professionally, everybody needs to find their way when they move to a new country. What I would say is men and women. I mean, it's really about building your network.
Mhm.
My husband is very good at that, so he could find his way in. UK being a country of opportunities, I think also really helps a bit in your careers. But yeah, I would say challenges are not very different in terms of
Okay.
professional life. Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know because I think, some of the challenges of women are similar
Mm.
to the challenges of any kind of minority. And I think that that is quite a well known fact. So it's good to know that the challenges that high skilled immigrant men face are not very different than the women. So, what is one cultural tradition or practice from your home country that you are still observing? Tell us a little bit about
Wow, that's lovely. Um, I do actually, Shivangi. I'm frankly, I see myself as a very traditional person who's also modern in her own way. I believe that person can have roots and have wings. Both is possible, especially for women. So my husband is from South, I'm from North, and Indians would know this a little bit better. So I do Karwa Chauth, like a North Indian woman, and I also follow traditions of the South, basically Golu and other things, which Tamilian cultures do, and I love it. I just absolutely love it. I make a full drama around it. I take holidays on those times and have a full cultural, feast and festivities around it. But one thing which I would say, Shivangi, which I've carried on, is the way I make my tea, chai. And I
yeah.
feel we all need one anchor or something familiar or continuity as we're moving from one place to the other. The way I make tea is the same I used to make 20 years ago. So that's not changed. I love my masala tea. It's still the same. I carried on that tradition or a small ritual all across wherever I went.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I can identify with the whole chai making process and what, as you said, a ritual and a practice, and it can be very calming. So thank you for sharing that. I'm curious to understand what home means to you today. You have now moved to different countries, to different cultures and continents. What does home mean to you today?
That's a very good question, Shivangi, because, as you would know, earlier I used to think home was back home, back to India or back to, and then I realized as I moved to UK, my children, because they're raised in Singapore, for them, home is Singapore. They don't even think of any other country to go back to. So home is changing definitions for us as we are moving. And I'm realizing more and more that home is not geography anymore for us. It's a feeling of belonging. It's a feeling or a place where we create something for ourselves, we build something for ourselves. I do believe that one anchor is really important as we move along. For me, it's my family. It could be for a companion for somebody else. And that anchor really supports you and gives you a place, a protective place where you would find your peace. But I believe it's become more a sense of belonging wherever I'm going. And as I said, whether it's chai or whether it's like I love listening to music, singing to music. When I was in France last week, I was humming an Indian song on the streets of Paris. So there are a few things that you carry with you, and I think that's how you make yourself at home wherever
Mm.
you are. And that's how I see it now.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And you did mention that home is where you feel a sense of belonging, right? Can you share a story about a moment when maybe in a new community, maybe in the UK, I know you're here for more than 18 months now, where you really felt something special that made you feel as if you're belonging to this new place and this new community?
Oh, wonderful. This is quite recent, actually. Thanks for asking that question. So this was in train, in one of our famous trains in UK. I mean, and I know whoever has traveled in UK would know that how jam packed it can be when you're traveling, especially in the office hours. So I remember, traveling in this train, which was, and I had some bags with me, of course. But I have built culturally, I've built, sort of a trait where you would just get up if you see somebody more in need, from you. And Singapore has got a great culture of doing that. So I saw a woman walked into, I mean, I was facing the door. She walked in and she was wearing a brace on her leg. I just got up and I said it because her need was definitely more than me. And I had my bags and lunges and everything, but I stood on the side and she sat there. I feel a lot of people were watching us do that. A few stations later, I remember that one more seat became empty. And instead of just anybody jumping on it, a couple of people across in that area said that well, you go and sit down over there because they saw me standing there. And it was such a small gesture, Shivangi, and really a small act of kindness. But I really felt a sense of belonging. I felt I was smiling while I was doing that, just thinking that people do see that you are trying to do something good and they bring it back to you. It was just really passed back to me very quickly. And I really felt that that was a great feeling, that I'm in a good place where people
So
do are
beautiful, right?
kind
So
to
an
me.
act of kindness that was, reciprocated to you in such an immediate space of
Immediate way.
time. I think that is
Yeah,
really amazing. We
yeah,
always talk about how acts of kindness create just more generosity and, more beauty in the world. So this is
yeah,
beautiful that you had an instance right away.
yeah.
Um, Shifting gears a little bit, right? What was the most surprising or unexpected thing that you discovered about yourself, as a Wonder Woman, right? As somebody who left their home context and is creating lives in other countries, what did you discover about yourself?
A very key thing, actually, Shivangi. So this is a time when I was in a role which was going pretty well, and I was new to a company, and a new role opened up, which was more senior, much more senior. It was a global role, and I was not applying for it, thinking that I'm new to this company. I need to prove myself. And a really senior woman, somebody I really respect. She's retired now in the company. She reached out to me and she said one thing. She said that, Aradhana, we do realize that you're not applying for this role. We don't know what the reason is. You're very bold, very tenacious, but you're also very Asian in your thinking. And she gave me a stat. She said that if a new role opens up for a senior person, if a man is even 30% qualified for it, they would apply. And a woman, even if she's 70% qualified, she would think, oh, I need to be 100% to apply for that. This statement has stayed with me, Shivangi. It really transformed the way I was thinking. And I realized that was true. Sometimes we just limit ourselves because of our gender, because of our role, because of our age, so many other things. And I felt that that was a place where I started thinking that we don't limit ourselves and go ahead. I did apply, frankly, for that role. I did get that role as well, Shivangi.
Is it?
But it was a great. It's a statement which has stayed with me forever and has helped me grow in my career as well.
That's fascinating, right? I mean, that is such a mentoring gesture, I would say, because I think in one statement you almost were able to break through some of the limiting beliefs, right? And I think they were there for good reasons in a way.
Yeah,
But that data around women and men applying for a role, I mean, that is very prominent.
yeah,
A lot of research shows that that's how a lot of women are not going up the career ladder because they are just waiting to tick all the boxes. There is also data to show that men are employed for potential and women for performance. So, of course, there is also bias in the system. But I think that what we can do, as Wonder Women, is to keep pushing that, envelope in the right direction. So this was great advice. Have you had any advice, in your career or maybe even your life that was actually not very good advice?
lots of them, Shivangi, not just one. In the hindsight, when you look at it, and I would say regrets are a waste of time. But yes, there are moments which now when I look back, I do feel that that advice was probably not the best one that I took. So this is really just even when I was coming back to, and you know that I became a professional baker in a way, like sort of a micro business of my own when I moved to Singapore. I was not working. I had a great time, the luxury of time in my hands. Started baking quite a bit for friends and family. It became quite a thing, and everybody knew me as a baker and a good chef. When it came a time when I wanted to go back to full-time job, and sort of start using my potential in that direction, I remember this very, very, very close well-wisher of ours, a close family friend. He sat me down and he said, "Why are you doing this? You should be baking." So he saw me as a cake lady. That's the name he had for me. And because he was a well-wisher of the family, I thought that they would know me better than I know myself, and I took that advice, stepped back a bit for some time, and in the hindsight, I realized that advice was coming from a place of love. Thinking about me, thinking about because my kids were young or whatever they were thinking. um, but I also feel that really sort of boxed me. It limited me, and probably they felt that that's what my capability is. And the fun fact is, I still bake. By the way, I went back to work eventually. I still bake, and I still love doing it. But I do it out of love, and I am still able to do much more than just baking. Still managing a business beyond that. But I think that was an advice I should not have taken, and followed
Thanks
my
for
love.
sharing that, right? Especially that the advice came from a well-wisher.
Yeah.
And I think that we all carry within ourselves multitudes, like I like to say, and I think there are different phases and times in our life when we want to be different versions of ourselves, and maybe that baking piece and running your own micro business, as you said, definitely gave you something. But
Yeah.
at a particular point in time, it can also become limiting, right? And then how do we break out of those molds, because some people know us as that identity, and maybe this person did not know about your national sales director kind of success, and just boxed you in that professional baker capacity.
Yeah.
But yeah, so well-meaning advice that can backfire, and then you lose either precious time or sometimes precious opportunities, right, which may never
Exactly.
come
Yeah.
back. I think
Yeah.
that
Exactly.
can be a very expensive bad advice then.
Yeah.
Inclusion has been on my mind, and I really wonder if in any of the societies that you have been a part of, what kind of inclusion acts or activities have you found most powerful? Like where you started feeling, I really feel included in this, and going up on that DEI kind of, trajectory, not just about inclusion, but also maybe equity, so diversity, equity, and inclusion in that space. What has
Yeah.
been most powerful for you?
Yeah, that's a good question, Shivangi. And in my role itself, because we work with a lot of HR leaders and D&I experts, this comes up a lot as a conversation. I mean, from my personal experience, Shivangi, I felt so. I grew up, as I said, in a culture where because my dad was in medical services, because of his seniority, he used to treat the governor as well of the state. But I have seen growing up as a child that his treatment for the governor versus a peon who was coming to be treated was exactly the same. They were getting exactly the same time. They were seated in the same places, and we grew up seeing that. So it was and as a child you don't realize these things, but
Mm,
as we grew up I did realize that my parents were already instilling that value in me, that it doesn't matter who is who, everybody needs to be given the same value and recognition. And I saw something very closely in my current company, the CEO of my company, Nick Goldberg. We were onboarding somebody, a very junior person in the sales team, and he just came across the room and he saw that somebody new had joined, asked his name, asked his role, and this person was shaking, because the CEO is suddenly just talking to them. The way he spoke to him, the way Nick spoke to him, it felt like he had the person had the most important role in the company. And I was just blown away by the way in those 2 minutes he made him feel so recognized. And he said that what you're going to do is going to be so impactful for Ezra. And I felt that one small act of inclusivity was enough for us to build a great culture in the companies. I'm seeing that person is seeing it. Probably they will trickle this down across the company. And I think that's what we need, Shivangi. We don't need big gestures. We need small acts as leaders where we include people, make them feel recognized, make them feel seen. And that's frankly enough. They will be passing it on along and, sort of creating a bigger ripple effect of inclusivity. I've seen this personally and I've seen this work. I've seen the most successful people are the ones who have this trait in them that they speak to the CEO as well as the junior most person the same way and give them the same recognition.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thanks for sharing that story. Last question for you, Aradhana. What's your best advice for other Wonder Women who might be navigating, this journey? Potentially also for those who took a career break, and as we all know, that's then a struggle to get back into the working space, or it might be also somebody who has come a long way and maybe also on paper are looking quite successful but are not feeling this sense of meaning or purpose. What's your advice?
That's many questions. I love that.
Because I was thinking, yes, Wonder Women can be at so many stages, right?
Yeah,
but I thought
I
that
agree.
you might be interesting for you because of the career break experience you had, and that's like a lived experience for you.
Yeah.
And the other one is also, and probably you're not there at this stage, but that's something I see a lot. I hear a lot, like you have the job, you have the so-called, success markers, and you're still feeling a bit of a void.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. I'll answer the second question first, Shivangi, because I feel women, not just women, I think human beings who are passionate, who are driven, will always have something called happy discontentment, which is good, Shivangi. We need that for progress. We need for that for people to grow. So if that feeling is coming in because you want to do something more, and Shivangi, I look at you as one of those people who always wants to do something more, is absolutely brilliant. I think we love to have such people around us who inspire us, people like you. But if that feeling, just to take the second step on that, is if that feeling is something which is making you feel not enough, if that makes you feel that I have something which you're creating regrets in your life, then we need to change that. And the only way to really change that is to first recognize it, first be aware about it, that this is happening to me, and then do something about it, of course, with the resources and the things that you have around you. um, I believe that that's for the second part. This the first part, about women who take a break in their career, and I've been one of them, and I know how it feels. How it feels, especially when you're on this bit of a rose tinted glass in front of you. You think that you can just come back whenever you want because you were in such and such role before, and that doesn't just happen. Nobody is even wanting to talk to you, frankly, at some point. um, is first of all, how do you keep yourself motivated at that time? And I feel that support is needed and through a coach or a guide or a mentor, family. There are so many people around us who could be really helpful, because sometimes to do this alone is tough. I believe that was an area, that was a place where I did take help from friends as well as family to ensure that they made me feel that I should continue on this journey. Some people give up, Shivangi. I've seen women who've been trailing spouses and then they give up at some point and they say, "Okay, that's it. This is for me," which is also fine if they are not feeling the void anyway. But if you want to continue doing this, it takes patience. It takes time, it takes small measures. So when I joined the first role after my career break, I was on zero salary. It was on a commission basis. So they wanted to trial me out for 3 months, see how it works out. And in less than 3 months, they put me on a permanent role. Of course, I had to work it off to show what I could do. But I believe that chance sometimes is also needed, and you should be okay to take something smaller and then eventually make it bigger for yourself. That's one thing. It's not biting the bullets. It's just restarting yourself basically and giving yourself that time to come back to that. The second thing is, Shivangi, there's no shortcuts to hard work. I mean, you have to work the same way. You have to outwork sometimes to become better at what you want to do or to show your real potential. And I think that also is something that women have to take it in stride. We are not really worried about hard work it's about keeping the balance between work and family and your traditions and the things that you want to do, and keep on doing that as well, and how to do that. I would say the third thing, and the most important thing, is to see opportunities and not let them go. Some opportunities come in our life, Shivangi, like lottery tickets, I would say. Even moving to Singapore or to UK for me, I would say was a lottery ticket, in multiple ways. When you work in a developing country, Shivangi, in India, we call it jugaad. You become very creative in the ways of working. Everything is creative and everybody does that. And you think that that's the right way of working. But when you move to a country like Singapore, where the systems are in place, it's very organized, you learn structure. And I realized very soon that creativity without structure is just chaos. And that's what something brought me into a place where I started learning new ways of working, unlearning and learning again. And I would say that was a lottery ticket for me, which gave me a spurt in my career because I was ready to unlearn and learn. But now creativity and structure was coming together to make me a better business leader. I took the same to UK, of course, in my own way. And there is still so many things that I'm doing here again, which I'm unlearning and learning again because Singapore is not UK and vice versa. And there are different ways of doing things in different countries. And that acceptance, awareness, and openness is, I feel, that women should be taking to become successful as they move from career to career, country to country, or jobs to job.
Thank you. Thank you. Very, very useful, all the three things that you have said. And thank you so much for your time. I am delighted with all the experiences that you have shared. And I'm looking forward, of course, to keep connected with you. Speaking, I think our journey started, I remember when I connected with you to speak about artificial intelligence and how that's
right.
Coaching in the world of coaching and mentoring. And here we are today. I think this is amazing. It really doesn't feel that it's probably the second or the third time in my life that I'm talking to you.
I know.
Really amazing sense of connection. Thank you so much, Aradhana. I look forward to keeping in touch with you. And of course, you're welcome to join the Thrive with Mentoring community as a mentor, and also the WanderWomen community, because I think we really need all the inspiration and all the real stories that we can get.
Thank you so much, Shivangi. And we are looking forward to your book and being inspired by that as well. All the best to you. Looking forward to connecting again.
Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thanks, Shivangi. Bye-bye.